lovely people on the internet, and welcome to this new video. And in this video I will talk about the books that I've read the past year, but also my to-be read. I'm not going to name all of the books, but some of them, some that I think are worth talking about. I have read 14 or 13, one of the two, books the past year. My goal is 20 books, but I don't think it really is about the number and more about experience. But I just like the idea of broadening my horizon and expanding my mind. Let's just hop into some of the books. I'm also crawled up beneath the blanket because I'm cold. So this year I started off with 2 books. First, The Fifth Agreement from Don Miguel Ruiz, and then The Mastery of Love, also from him. And the year before that I've read The Four Agreements. Really love this book, so that's why I grabbed these 2. And you will see that most of the books that I will talk about are more knowledge books, books that will learn you something instead of fiction books. Is it though? Not really. It's a bit of both. Okay. If you're into self-discovery, learning about yourself and the more spiritual concepts of life, then these books are great. I would recommend to read The Four Agreements first. It's very practical, very simple. I did underline some things. Now you can see that all their opinions about you really concern the character who lives in their movie, not yours. And with movie he means their personal perception of life. The one who they are judging in your name is a character they create. Whatever people think of you is really about the image they have of you, and that image isn't you. The wisdom it holds. And it has so many great quotes. Here it's respect is so important when you learn to listen. And I have another one. I'm only one half of the message. You are the other half. I'm responsible for what I say, but I'm not responsible for what you understand. Great book. Great book, would really recommend. He wrote this with his son, and it's just, this is one of the books, I have this more with these type of books, but this is one of the books that you want to read so fast because it's just so good. And on the other side, you want to read it very slowly because you really want to soak in all the pieces and bits of the information that's within this book. And the same for The Mastery of Love, although it repeated a bit of the things that already were said in the previous 2 books. But nevertheless, it was still very good. Let's see, what did we read more the past year? You will slowly see that there will be coming gaps in this bookshelf. I'm reading the Dream Harbor series. These are really just sappy romance books. Nothing fancy, not very evolutionary, but just a simple read. But first we had The Christmas Tree Farm. Laurie Gilmore is the creator of this series. And this is the first book I actually read. I thought it was that one, but it's not, because this one I started in 2024 and finished in 2025. So in Goodreads it says that I've read this in 25. Just very sappy. I like this one though, like the characters. It was fun. Not my favorite of the series, but it was fun. The Strawberry Patch Pancake House though was really my fave from the series so far, since it was a little bit different. I really liked the dynamic with the child in the picture. It made the stakes a bit more higher. As for the previous books in the series, we just knew what would happen. Eventually they would come together, you know. And here I also suspected that, but I couldn't quite grasp the form it would be in, since I was a child in the picture. But I really liked the dynamic with the child, so love this one. Okay, the books that I'm going to show you, you will be probably like, okay, but isn't that cheating to read books that thin? Then you don't really read a book a month. And I agree, but it is what it is. We've come to my stack of summer reads, starting off with Create Dangerously. I don't know, didn't really like it. It was quick, it was interesting. I really suspected something else when I picked this up, but it's more about the freedom of expression, creative freedom, and how there are places in the world where it's very dangerously to create. So really was something else than I was expecting. Like I thought this was more about people that created something magnificent and that people are like, oh my God, how did you do that? And it's still something like that, but in a very different environment than I expected it to be in. Then another book that I read was this one, very famous book. And I didn't know this one. The other one I actually picked up because it was so small. This one I ordered on the internet and I had no idea that was so small. I always thought that this was like a full-size book. Not to say that this isn't a real book or not a full-size book. A book is a book, but it was just so much thinner than I thought. But this is We Should All Be Feminists. Sorry, I had to restart the camera, but we're back again. I'm gonna try her name, pronounce it the right way. I don't know if that's the correct way. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is a book based on her TED Talk that she gave. And I don't know, it's a really interesting take because a lot of books around feminism that I've read are more based on the Western culture. And I think that's only one part of the story. And this one is more based on African culture, which was a totally new perspective. And I think also very important that I read something about this, since I didn't really know a lot about this subject. So very interesting, quick read. There are really some very good points in this book. So if you are into feminism as a topic, really read this book. Then we had, I won't say it's really poems, but it's not fiction either. Maybe a bit of an autobiography, but as theme The Color Blue. I think it's very hard to label this and classify this into a genre, but it's Bluets. It's just a very interesting book. These are all short alineas, numbered. Yeah, you can see it here. Some longer than the others. And she just writes about things that she associates with the color blue from her own life experiences. So maybe stories that she heard, stories that she experienced around grief, around her love life. And it's just so beautiful. In general, if I have a book full of poems, I don't really tend to feel the urge to turn the page again and read. And for this book, I really had this because there was some sort of storyline, but not really. It was almost like journal-like, as if I was reading a diary, but in a very artistic way. It was like nothing I've ever read before, so that was really interesting. Recommend this book, Bluet. And then, this is absolutely my new favorite book. Oh my God, this is also the first book that made me cry a little bit. I really didn't know what I was expecting, but it was definitely not this. It's The Midnight Library from Maud Haig. I do want to give like a little bit of a trigger warning because it's around depression and suicide, but it's not the main theme. So you can skip, I think, a minute, 2 minutes ahead. That's not something you're in the mood for right now. That's totally fine. It's about a girl who has depression and she commits suicide very early on in the story. And that's when the story actually really begins, as she comes in this place called the Midnight Library, where she can then try different alternatives of her life based on what if she made another decision at some point in her life. And that's just so interesting because for me personally, and I think a lot of people, that's something we all do, like questioning if something was the right decision and how things would have turned out if we made another decision. And I think this is a really beautiful take on this, and also I really enjoyed it. The ending was so beautiful. I really started to care for the character, even though she can be very negative from time to time. I really started to have some compassion for her, and I don't know, it was written so good, so well. Then another book that I currently don't have here because a friend of mine is reading it, I lent it to her, is The Death of Francis Bacon. And this is also a very thin book, but this is also a book that I bought with the idea that it was something else than it actually was, the story. So that was also a nice surprise, but it was really, really good and so funny. I really was surprised by this book. I thought personally that it would be about a murder case, but it's not about a murder case. It's about a painter who is on his deathbed and just the last few days of his life. But since he is slowly losing touch with reality and with life, the perspective of the story really crumbles at some point, and I think that's just so funny. And it also comes with some memories of him. It all just bleeds into each other at some point, and it's just, it was so good, but not like life-changing good, or like that I was like, this is the best book I've ever read, but just in a surprising way good, that I was like, oh, this is actually so creative and so interesting. Then another 2 books that I've read that I'm not gonna talk about further on, but I also want to mention, is The Daughter of the Silent Queen. It was a fun book, but not really special for me. And I also read a book full of essays on media, and some of the essays were interesting, some of them weren't. But I do think that I will continue to read essays in the future, but maybe online and not so much in a book. And another book that I've read is Anne of Ingleside. It's from Anne of Green Gables, the series, but the further I go into the series, the less fun the books are for me personally. But I do want to read further in this series. But that's also one of the books I've read. Then a book that I started in 2025 was Anatomy, and it was so good. And then I traveled to Paris, and my water bottle, it spilled all over my bag, and the book was completely soaked. It actually saved some of my other stuff by soaking up so much water, so I'm thankful for that. But yeah, I couldn't read any further, so I have to buy it again. I need to buy that book because I think it was really good at the beginning. It really was, like, it got my attention. Another book that I started reading was, and I'm still reading, Feminism. It's a Dutch book. Most of the books I read are English, but this is a Dutch one from Els Kloe. And this is a book from a series called Elementaire Deeltjes. Okay, so Google translated as elementary particles. But there are so many books, like up to 100, I think. Maybe less, maybe more. All with the same cover, but in different colors. And they are written by different writers that know a lot about a very specific topic: anthropology, money, religion, vaccinations, architecture, psychology, criminology, Socrates, modern China, the European Union, Africa, black holes, like so many different topics. And then it's really touch on this subject and trying to learn you as much about this particular subject. And I really liked the one of feminism. Got it from some friends. I went to Paleis het Loo. It's in the Netherlands, and that's the palace from the king and queen, but like not their main establishment. There's also a museum here, and this museum, there was one exhibition around feminism in the royal family, and it really was very interesting for me, since I didn't really know that one of the queens we've had in the past did something for it, and it's also in the book. So I was like, maybe I want to learn more about the history of feminism in my own country. So that's why I picked up this book. And really interesting so far. But it also talks about other countries and where the movement starts, and the first part of feminism, the second part, important names. Oh, it's just so good, but I'm still reading it. And since it's so full of knowledge, I have a hard time reading it fast. Like, I really need to take my sweet time to really soak in the things that are being said, instead of reading it and forgetting it immediately. And then I also have another book that I'm really excited for, and that is The Will to Change, which is also a book around feminism. But in this particular one, like a lot of books around feminism are around the girls and females, and how to approach feminism for them, how they are sometimes limited in certain things. And then I mean like with the patriarchy and the way history evolved, where men were natural leaders in this case in our history. The will to change also talks about like the pressure for men that comes with this, with like the patriarchy and like the expectations there are for them. They are not always expected to show their emotions, and it's really interesting because this book talks about like more than just the female perception on the topic. But that's what I heard. I've not read it so far. But these are definitely the first 2 books of this year that I want to read. And I also have, for the Dream Hobbit series already, the next one laying here. I bought it recently and it's the Gingerbread Bakery. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really like that you stayed till the end of the video. I really love to hear if you've read any of these books, and if not, what the books are that you are reading. Maybe you have some recommendations. You now know what I like, so maybe you're like, this is the perfect book for you. Or maybe you have just some other very interesting books that you want to share with the people that watch this video. Just drop them in the comments. And then I hope I see you in my next video. Bye!